Mic check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I'm hearing that video game collecting is dead, that it's over. And my feelings on that is that it's partially true and it's partially not. I think when it comes to collecting cartridges, the game is almost a wrap. I'm not gonna say that it's completely a wrap, but it's almost a wrap because this generation, this fourth generation of games, has become one of two things: very scarce and very expensive, especially for the good stuff. So your options in collecting Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis games have become very, very strained. And finding these games, you can find them. I don't want to say or paint the picture that you can't find these games at all, but what you're going to pay when you find them is crazy. So I'll give you an example. So recently I just traded for this copy of Knights of the Round. And this cartridge, they had it at the store for roughly around 150 bucks, but I'm pretty sure that was like 2020 pricing. So I negotiated it down to roughly 100 bucks, which I thought was fair. It was a little overpriced. I think it was still $10 overvalued, but it's still fair for Knights of the Round. But still, $100 for a Super Nintendo game is a little wild in 2024 because you can go out and get a new game on the PS5 for 70 bucks or for 60 bucks. So that's pretty steep. Then you have another game like Mega Man X5. Now Mega Man X2. This is another game that I picked up. However, this one I picked up from GameStop during their buy two get one. So when you factor in the buy two get one, I guess that kind of helped knock this down to around 67 bucks. But still, market value on this game is about 110, 120 bucks. Again, for a fourth generation video game. Now, you do have other games that are top tier games that are, and when I say top tier, I mean in terms of quality, right? This is a staple in the SNES lineup. Super Castlevania 4, amazing game. Definitely one that you want to play at least one time. But even still, this is a $45 game. Loose. Not even including the manual or the box. All these games, all these prices are loose. No manual, no box. And then you have another game that I picked up here from my local game store in UN Squadron, which this is about a $25 to $30 game. Now, these games, again, they're not super rare or anything like that, but they are expensive. And the idea that you're going to find these games casually going to a thrift store, a mom and pop shop, a you know, even your local retro game store. I'm noticing that a lot of even local retro game stores, their selection has dwindled down. And then the stores that do have it, they know what they have, so they are going to charge you a premium. Now, why is game collecting like this? Why is it dead? Why is it dying so fast? And when I say that it's dying, I'm really referring to anything fifth generation and older, right? So everything from the PlayStation 1 and the N64 generation back to about the NES generation, that is very scarce because that's kind of the sweet spot. Anything older than the NES, I don't think many people are really going to care about. I don't think a lot of people are looking at like Atari and stuff like that. No one cares about that. But pretty much Gen 3 to Gen 5, 3, 4, and 5, those generations are what a lot of people want, but a lot of people either A, can't afford, or B, cannot find. And I think it's for a few reasons. One, the biggest reason is that a lot of people know. A lot of people know what they have. A lot of people have done the research. There are millions of YouTube videos out there at this point highlighting the value of the games of this generation. And so even if someone has a loose cart copy of NBA Jam, they want $30 for it because in their mind, they think that seeing a gray cartridge or a black cartridge or a PlayStation 1 disc means that they've got something extremely valuable. Now, the sixth generation is pretty much on its way out the door. Like sixth gen is on its way out the door. You can still find a lot of sixth gen games around all those normal places. You go to a thrift store, you're gonna find some 6th gen games. You're gonna find some PlayStation games. Oh, sorry, you're gonna find some PlayStation 2 games. You're gonna find some original Xbox games. You're gonna find some GameCube games. You may still even find some Dreamcast games because Gen 6 is still out there. And I don't think it's really hit that point where it's like just completely, you're not going to find it at all. Gen 6 is still out there. And even if you want to look at GameStop as a barometer, you'll find way more PlayStation 2 games at a retro GameStop store than you will, say, a Super Nintendo or a Sega Genesis or an NES game. Just because PlayStation 2, GameCube, those generations they're more recent, right? They're still more recent, and there's still more room for you to find that stuff. But that generation is definitely out the door because a lot of people one, the GameCube was the system to collect for during 2020, 2021, 2022, and even in some ways into 2023. Now, the difference with the GameCube is that a lot of the more popular GameCube games that are out there are being ported, right? Paper Mario Thousand Year Door recently released on the Switch. A lot of the games, Pikmin, released to the Switch. Mario Sunshine, that was put in the Mario 3D All Stars bundle, put to the Switch. So Nintendo has such a broad ecosystem that they almost kind of cannibalize themselves in a way by re-releasing their better games onto their more modern platforms. However, there are still a lot of games that were exclusive to the GameCube that I think make having a GameCube worthwhile for a lot of people. You think about games like Billy Hatcher, Wario World, Chibi Robo, and the list goes on. There's so many, really great GameCube games, popular GameCube games, rare GameCube games, expensive GameCube games that make people want to still go after that system. But in a large part, I do think Nintendo has a habit of doing that to themselves, where they come out with a system, they make great games, and then they just send all those games to their more recent system. I think the difference with Nintendo is that they've got so much IP and they work with so many developers, and they've got, not for all their systems, but with like the Switch for sure. There's like everything is on the Switch. I feel like the GameCube and the Wii U were limited in a lot of ways in terms of the amount of games that came out for both platforms, good games anyway. And then with the Wii, yeah, there were a ton of games on the Wii, but a ton of shovelware, a lot of stuff that people just don't care about. And so, for me, when I look at 6th gen, Dreamcast is already out the door. Like, I consider Dreamcast 6th gen. You're not going to find that stuff. That stuff is already like, most people are priced out of the good games on the Dreamcast. GameCube has priced itself out over the last couple of years. And then you have really the PlayStation 2 and the original Xbox are really like the last two consoles of that generation that you can still find some decent stuff for at a decent price. But really, 7th gen is really where we're at. And for anyone who's thinking about starting a collection, and I mentioned this the other day, 7th gen is really where you have to start if you're trying to find a system that you can buy really good games for, and build a solid collection of quality games without breaking the bank. Now, don't get me wrong. Right now, we are in the rise in terms of like prices and values. Right now is when the values of 7th gen games are going through the roof. Right now, this summer was the summer that we saw a lot of things just inflate crazy. On both the PS3 and the Xbox 360, we just started seeing games shoot to the moon. And so you still have the rest of 2024 to try and capitalize on 7th gen. But I want to say after maybe this year, going into like this year and the first half of next year is pretty much where the window for 7th gen is going to close. And now 8th gen, and by 8th gen I mean PlayStation 4, Switch, Xbox One, that's going to be their heyday now. That is when that generation should be at their lowest point, and you should be able to get the games of that generation at the cheapest prices. Now, don't get me wrong, there's outliers in every generation. There are games that are a part of every generation that are just outliers. You know, there are games that as soon as they release, they're instant classics. They're instantly $300 games. They're instantly the game that everyone wants, or they're instantly limited. And it just is what it is. But we're still in at that point, I think, with both PS4, Switch, and Xbox One, where you can buy a lot of games that have not shot up yet, that may shoot up in terms of values over the next couple years. And obviously, you're not buying games like stocks hoping that they shoot up. But if you like a game or you like a genre, go ahead and grab it before it goes through the roof and now it's just completely unattainable. And that's really what I'm talking about here. Attainability, how easy it is for you to get games, add them to your collection, build your collection. It's getting harder. I've always told myself that I want to keep my collection under 1,000 games. I don't think personally for me it makes sense to have more than 1,000 games in my collection, um, because I really find myself only liking about 5 to 10% of any console's library based on the types of games that I like, based on quality and just the different things that I look for. And so when I build my collection based on those principles, there's no reason my collection should ever exceed 1,000 games. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Is game collecting dead, or is it only dead for certain generations? And if so, which generations do you think are over? It's the Y2K Collector. It's Monday. Hopefully you're starting this week off great. Hopefully you had a great weekend, and I'll catch you in the next video. Take it easy.